Sparkly thing.
It appears it's now 6 o'clock, and I would need a motion to come out of closed session, please.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll start our voting with Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. McCraw,
Yes.
other Mr. McCraw.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Yes. Now we need to certify that we only spoke about what we talked about. The resolution is, whereas the Carroll County Board of Supervisors convened a closed session to state pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and on the motion to close the meeting in accordance with the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.2-3711, paragraph D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Board of Supervisors that each closed session was conducted in conformity with the Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Carroll County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session to which the certification applies, and two, only such business matters as were identified in the motion by which this closed session was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting to which the certification applies. And I'd ask that if you agree with that, to say you so certify. I'll start with Mr. Moore,
I so certify.
Mr. McCraw,
I so certify.
Mr. Hill,
I so certify.
Mr. McCraw,
I so certify.
Mr. Webb.
I so certify.
I so certify. Thank you. I'll now ask Rob if he'll have our invocation and our pledge.
It's all right. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you've provided for us and the many blessings that you've passed our way. Lord, we just ask that you watch over us and protect us. Keep us safe on our journeys back home and keep us mindful of our duties through this meeting. Lord, we also ask that you help us to remember that we're celebrating you and your birth at this time of year. And Lord, we just ask that you bless and continue to bless each and every one of us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get into the regular agenda, I do want to recognize that a young lady in the room is having a special day today. It's Crystal's birthday. And I want to thank Crystal for all she does for the board, especially for me. And hope you had a great day, and sorry you had to work on your birthday.
Thank you.
And I have added one item to the agenda under new business, the first item, and it'll be a presentation about the Twin County Airport by the manager, Aaron Brummett. He should be here at that time. Our next item on the agenda, as printed, is the citizens' time, and people were given the opportunity to call if they wanted to, or be in person one at a time. Do we have anybody lined up? No one for citizens' time. Okay, next item is public hearing on the continuity ordinance, and Steve is going to talk to us about that a little bit. Mr. Durbin, if you would take the podium.
Thank you, Dr. Littrell. Gentlemen, you have before you a proposed ordinance which would adopt alternative procedures to maintain continuity of county government pursuant to Virginia Code Section 15.2-1413. I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with this by now. You've adopted it as emergency measure when the pandemic first hit back in March. Subsequently readopted it in May, and that remained in place for 6 months, which is the limitation that you can have an ordinance like that in place under the Code of Virginia. This ordinance, because you can only have it in place for 6 months at a time, it's time to readopt it and keep it in place. You, in November, adopted it as an emergency measure to continue alternative meeting procedures and other measures called for in the ordinance, so that you would have an opportunity to advertise and hold the public hearing, and now you have it before you for adoption to remain in effect for another 6 months. I will note that the only difference between the version that I just handed out before the meeting began and what was advertised is the version I handed out does make note of the fact that you adopted the temporary measure at last month's meeting. So with that, if you have any questions, otherwise it would be my recommendation to adopt the ordinance for another 6 months with the hope and the prayer that we will be able to repeal this ordinance before that time, because the pandemic will be subsiding because of the vaccine.
Thank you. I should have opened the public hearing at 6:04 earlier before you started, but
Well, it's fine to do the introduction before you open the public
Okay.
hearing, so you're fine on that either way procedurally.
okay. Is anyone in the public that'd like to speak on the ordinance? There is none. So I will close the public hearing at 6:06, and if you're in agreement, we can have a motion to accept this continuity ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept this continuity of local government ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Did somebody second it?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I can't hear sometimes up here. Is there any discussion on this ordinance before we vote? Hearing none, I'll start the motion, the voting with Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. McCraw. Philip,
Yes.
Raleigh, Mr. McCraw,
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Yes. When I was sitting at the other table, I could look you in
You
the
can look
eye.
us in the eye, that's right.
I can't do that now. And I vote yes. So the public hearing, the ordinance passes. Our next item is payment of invoices, and we need to approve that if you're in agreement with it.
I'll make a motion, we accept the payment of invoices as presented.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you. Any discussion, any questions of any of the invoices? Hearing none, we'll start the voting with Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Robbie McCraw,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Philip McCraw,
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Motion approved. All right, the next is the minutes of the previous meetings. Hope you've had a chance to look over them.
I make a motion, we approve the previous meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll start with Mr. Robbie McCraw,
Yes.
Mr. Philip McCraw,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes. Under new business is Aaron here, Crystal. Come on up to the podium if you would, please, Aaron.
Hello, everyone.
Gentlemen, this is Aaron Brummett. He's our manager at Twin County airport, and I've asked him to come and give us an update on things that are going on and some exciting things that we've had going on.
Is it okay?
Executive
Okay.
ask.
Thought I was well enough away from everyone. Well, thank you for having me. I was told to come up here and give a short presentation on some of the things that we have going on. I have it broken down to a couple of different categories. The first thing I'd like to talk about is hangar availability. The good news is, as of right now, we're all full. The bad news is that we're all full. It's good to have your lots filled, and that we do. Matter of fact, we lost an airplane last week. A gentleman down in Florida bought it, and the next day I was able to have an airplane back in that spot just because the demand is so high. And that's the way it is throughout the entire region. A lot of times we'll have pilots coming in looking for hangar space, and they'll say, okay, Mountain Empire's full, Mount Airy's full, Roanoke, Blacksburg, Pulaski. That's just a problem in all of Southwest Virginia and the surrounding areas is just a lack of hangar space. As of right now, we personally have a waiting list of 5 people, so we can definitely, anything that we can do to get some hangar space is very good. The next section, fixed base operators. Fixed base operators are basically anybody that has, fixed base operations at the airport. That's flight instructors, aircraft mechanics, companies that mainly do aerial work and that base out of the airport. As of right now, our primary flight instructor, Mr. Caleb Glick, he runs Hangar 1 HLX. He has 6 active students, and I think he said he had 3 or 4 that are on and off. But each of those airplanes, every time he has a student, he flies for a couple hours with them. So each student that he can bring in is more time that they're in the air, more time that they're buying fuel, that kind of thing. We also have a new mechanic shop there. They call themselves Imperial Aviation. They do a lot of really good work. They do work on higher end aircraft. The flight instruction school typically uses flight airplanes that are based for flight instruction, so they are on the lower end of price, single engine airplanes. This gentleman does higher end single engines and also some twins. So you're looking at more expensive airplanes. Having him there is a great draw. The airplanes that he bring in get exposed to the airport in the area. They also buy fuel, help support the airport. So having him there is a great help. As of right now, he has 2 part-time guys. And if he could get more floor space, more places to put airplanes, he's talking about hiring probably 2 or 3 full-time positions, which would be very good. And again, that kind of loops back around to the hangar availability aspect. And then moving on, our traffic. Traffic has been interesting. At the beginning of COVID, everything slowed down, and that was pretty much nationwide. As some of the restrictions were lifted, what I would call weekend warriors started increasing. Weekend warriors, our private airplane owners that get out and fly for fun, that do flight instruction, that kind of thing. That increased back to about normal levels, maybe a little bit less. On the corporate side of traffic, which would be anything that's used for profit, utility companies, charter flights, individuals with private jets, that kind of thing hasn't really came back. We haven't seen much of an increase in that. Used to, we could expect maybe 6 to 10 jet aircraft a month, and right now we're lucky if we can see 1. Those customers are the ones that typically make the larger fuel purchases in excess of 200-300 gallons at a single time. Whereas a smaller airplane might take 60 or 70. So we have lost quite a bit of revenue there in that department. One thing that we have seen, which is interesting, is an increase in the utility companies. Those would be people that do power line inspections. So they actually fly up to a power line and hook a cable onto it. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with it, but they work on the power lines by helicopter. You have natural gas line leak detection companies. So they have a helicopter, and they basically fly along power lines and detect leaks with some sophisticated equipment that's strapped to the bottom of a helicopter. But the biggest one that we have seen is a company called Aerial Solutions. I'm sure you're probably maybe heard of them. They're the ones that do the tree trimming around power lines. So when you look and you see those big wide lanes, it's by helicopter. They've got a big saw that's basically wirelessly operated. and they hook it up to the bottom of that helicopter, and they fly along, and they cut those trees down. We've seen a big increase in their usage of the airport, and they say that the reason that they do is the fact that we can provide them with some hangar space. They fly those helicopters a lot, to say the least, and every so many hours they have to do inspections where they take the entire engine apart and put it back together. And to have a hangar space where they can do that is very beneficial to them to stay out of the elements. They like the hangar space. They like the access to the self-serve fuel system. Our fueling system is self-serve, so it works basically like a gas pump at a gas station, except most airports don't have those kinds of systems in place. We do, which is a big bonus to them because they can come in at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and they don't have to worry about getting airport personnel out to get access to the fueling system. The next thing that they like is the clean approaches. Again, they work at very odd hours. Sometimes it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, especially this time of year before they get back in. If they can see the ground with their spotlights, then they're going to be out trimming trees. So it could be foggy weather, it could be, like I said, nighttime. And having those clean approaches into the airport, very beneficial to them for sure. They can use the instruments in the helicopter, and they can find the airport without actually having to see it, which is very good for them. They've been using this quite a lot more than normal, and the fuel cells off of that have been very good. Very good. Not quite back to normal levels, but we're very pleased with them. That was, like I said, a short discussion about some of the things that we do. Does anybody have any questions about our operations?
How many planes can you store?
Right now, we can store, well, we have 22 that are based there as of right now. There's one that's tied down outside, so I'm going to say 21. The reason there's some variance in that is it depends on the size of the airplane a little bit. One of the companies up there, Twin County Aviation, has a large open hangar. So the smaller the airplane, the more airplanes you can put in there. As of right now, 21. We do have some tie-down space that's available, and you do see some airplanes tied down out there, but the more expensive the airplane, the less people want to put their airplanes and leave them outside.
Just to clarify what you said, we have two kinds of fuel. We have the avgas, and we also have the Jet A. So the helicopters. burn
Yes,
jet fuel.
yes. The helicopters, most helicopters are using jet fuel. Your utility helicopters that are doing that kind of work are using jet fuel. Utility helicopters use it, and then private jets use it. Typically, the smaller you go in airplane size, you get down into using the avgas, which is 100 octane leaded fuel. And the increase we've seen in jet fuel, in fuel revenue has been in the jet fuel side.
Do you have any plans to expand your buildings?
In, I believe it's March, is the next meeting of the Virginia Aviation Board. At that meeting, we're going to make a request for a grant in order to do some site preparation for more hangar space. So that'll be in the works right now. But that project it'll be 2 or 3 years by the time that we're finished with that, and the hangars are standing there and ready to be used. Will probably give us, and then again, it depends on the airplane size, but it'll give us 4 hangars. A larger airplane, you might get 1 in each hangar, and the smaller the airplane, you might get 2.
Are we confined to one site of putting hangars?
We're not. If you're coming up the road right now, the new set of hangars will be in between the terminal and the newest set of hangars in that little access road. That access road will be reworked, and they'll go right there. Not really. The next set of hangars could go on the other side. That'll require a lot of dirt, and that'll be a bigger process. They could go there, and then if you're coming up the road all the way on the opposite side of the end of the airfield, that's another spot for proposed hangars.
Anyone else got anything? Sure appreciate your time, Aaron.
Yep, no problem. Thank you for having me. And again, a lot of this stuff that we're doing, the maintenance and stuff, is definitely from the help of Carroll County, so we really appreciate your help in making the airport a safe place for pilots.
I'll see you Thursday night.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. We need to approve that if you agree with it.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the consent calendar? Hearing none, I sense you're ready to vote then. Mr. Philip McCraw,
Yes.
Mr. Robbie McCraw,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Yes. Consent calendar has been approved. Our next item is a discussion about the reassessment, and I believe there's someone here, but I have not met them yet. Come in, welcome. You come up to the podium, please. You may take your mask off if you choose.
Okay.
If you don't want to, that's fine too.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. My name is Mike Colavecchio. I work for Wamplerines Appraisal Group. I was the job supervisor. Our company did the last 2 reassessments here in Carroll County. Our company does most of our work here in Virginia. We do some work in North Carolina. By the end of this year, we would have completed about 120 reassessments and in about 53 different localities between both states. I myself have been doing this for 40 years. I've been part of about 90 reassessments in my career. The reason why I do reassessments is basically because the state law requires it, as you know. Counties can go as long as 6 years between reassessments if they have a population of less than 50,000. If the population's more than 50,000, then the longest they can go is 4 years. So I think you've been doing it every 4 to 5 years here in Carroll County. We began the reassessment September of last year. So by the time, typically when we do a reassessment, we visit every property, or at least every property we can get access to. Near the beginning of the process, I met with Salil, and we arrived at a policy of not entering properties that were posted no trespassing at the road. So some of those properties have a locked gate. We wouldn't be able to get into them anyway, but if they weren't locked, if it was posted no trespassing, we did not enter. The county does have a GIS aerial map, so for large parcels, we would look at those maps if we couldn't gain access to the property. In some cases, and typically we would try to leave a card at the gate if there was a gate to the property. So some people did call us back during the process and had us come back out or told us you can come back out and enter the property. So when COVID began, so I guess around March of this year, we changed our policy somewhat to allow for that, as pretty much everybody had to change what they did. If we knocked on the door, we would have the assessors back at least 6 feet away from the door and try to speak to the people. In some cases, we have employees who either themselves or their family members have underlying health conditions and have to be extra careful. In those cases, they would pull into the property and beep the horn, and to see if someone would come out to the property, to come out to the vehicle and greet them. Otherwise, and then they would get out of the vehicle and walk around the outside of the property. So that's pretty much how we conducted the process while COVID, once it had begun. We completed the inspections, primary inspections we completed in September, and new construction, we're processing new construction all throughout the process. Some properties we had to go back to see what percentage of completion they were at, and that was done sometime around mid-October. And there may be properties we will still go back out on before the end of the year if they're completed. Parcel splits and combination subdivisions, lot combinations up till mid-October were also processed and included in the notices that people got. But if it happened after that, they will not be processed until the end of the year, and they'll be notified along with the results of the reassessment reviews. So to value the properties, basically the main, probably the main thing that we look at other than the properties themselves are the sales. So we looked at 2019 and 2020 sales. And between the two, there was around 350 sales in 2019 and around 400 sales in 2020. So comparing the properties and their values to the sale price is what we use to determine how this is affecting the market and whether the property should be increasing or decreasing or staying the same. That also has to do with where the property is in the county. The county has been stratified into neighborhoods. There's approximately 34, 35 odd neighborhoods throughout the county. Some are subdivisions within themselves, some are larger rural areas that aren't really a planned subdivision. So the ratio of our assessments after we've adjusted the assessments on the 750 sales came out to 96.3%. On a reassessment, your goal is to assess at 100% of market value. And that's almost impossible unless you're trying to manipulate, or what they call chasing the sales. So we have to try to come up with a system, apply it evenly, and still appraise the properties as close to 100% as we can. In most years, we would use just the prior year. In most, when we normally do reassessments. This case, we use 2019, 2020. COVID gets blamed for a lot of things, but I think it has affected the market somewhat. And when it started, I was concerned it was going to affect the market negatively, but it didn't. It did almost the opposite, which is counterintuitive. But several things have been happening. Interest rates were dropped through 2019 and through this year. That always helps the real estate market, usually. Building costs have gone up. The demand for housing is going up because the interest rates are low. So those are factors that all have contributed to increasing the property values. There may or may not be. I know in a lot of places there's just a limit of supply of properties for sale. And whenever there's a limit of supply, it drives the value up. So those are the factors that are going into affecting the current market. So our goal is to try to reflect that. So again, our median assessment is 96.3% of the sales. The coefficient of deviation, which is measuring how much deviation you have within that sample, is 14.4%. Department of Taxation guidelines require 20% or less for a rural type community. So we're well within that dynamic. Of those sales, approximately 80% of the sales sold for more than the prior assessed value. So that right there is a clear indicator that the values have increased. The median or midpoint increase of those sales over the assessed value was about 16%. So that's just taking the previous assessed value that was established in 2017, matching that up with what it sold for within the last 2 years, and you have a percentage of increase. That tells you whether the properties are going up or going down. This is the first reassessment in 12 years that has created an overall increase in the assessed values. That's another thing to keep in mind as well. We did the reassessment in 2012, and we dropped the values about 12% at that time. We did the reassessment in 2017, and that dropped the values about 1%. So it was relatively flat with a slight decrease. So this is the first time you're really seeing an increase in the general tax base in 12 years. Reassessment notices were mailed out on December 1st, and reviews for any appeals that we'll be getting will begin actually tomorrow on December 15th. So taxpayers have until the end of the day on Monday, December 21st, which is next Monday, to file an appeal with us. The property owners can appeal by email, or they can mail us. We're not doing in-person appeals because of COVID. There's just no way we can do that and assure somebody's safety, and it's really for the public's safety and our safety as well. Now, if somebody requires a phone appointment, we'll be doing that. So we have up to 10 days set aside with up to 5 people to do the appeals and do the reviews if we need that many people and if we need that much time. So we will schedule an appointment for people by phone if they require it. Otherwise, they will send us their information. There is a portion at the bottom of the notice, if you've gotten your notices already, you may have seen it, where they can fill out the information as to why they think the property is not assessed properly, and mail that back to us. And we ask for their phone number on that so that we can call them if we have any questions based on what they've sent us. We should complete the reviews by the end of the month, and the review notices, the results of these hearings, should be mailed out by mid-January. If there's any additional new construction that we pick up between now and the end of the year, that will be included. They will be notified as well within that mailing. And any lot subdivisions or combinations will be included in that as well. All right, so we've been receiving calls. As of today, we have about 217 properties that are being appealed. That's not properties, 200 actual appeals. These are people, so that a person may have several parcels. But we've heard from about 217 people who want to appeal their assessment. A small number of those people want the value raised, but the vast majority are complaining that it's too high. We try to help the people as best we can when we talk to them on the phone. The perception is that an increase in the assessment is an automatic increase in the taxes. So we try to spend our time, and most people are concerned about the taxes, obviously. We try to focus their argument on the value of the property, because we really don't set the tax rate. We don't know what the taxes are going to be for next year. So we try to limit their argument based on what facts can you tell us about the property as to why you think it's not worth what it's worth. We do not do interior inspections as part of a reassessment. So if people are asking us or trying to understand what may detract from the value of their property, typically we're going to see everything on the outside of the house. We're going to see the outbuildings. But there could be a number of things inside the house that we're not going to know about unless somebody tells us. We've been asking people to take photos, send us photos. There could be any kind of structural issue, there could be repairs that be needed, there could be leaky basements. Some people have said they've had a recent appraisal, that helps. The recent would be within the last 2 years. Some people may have the property on the market right now for sale. If it's at or below the assessed value that we have it at, then that's a good reason for appealing your assessment. Typically, I would say about a third of the properties that we've looked at in our sales study have had some kind of work done to them before they were sold. And most of the time, there's no permit. So, I mean, it could be anything from just doing basic cosmetic work to more substantial things like replacing kitchens, replacing bathrooms, new lighting, new electrical systems, new heat pumps. But we see a lot of that with no building permits. So, and a lot of times the only way we can find that is if we go online and Google the property and search in the MLS and look at the photos of the property that were posted when it was on the market. So when you look at that information, you can tell a lot of times that there are things there that we have not assessed. So some people went up. If you did nothing to your property, it would more than likely went up in value. But if you've done additional things, additions, renovations, added buildings, then you would increase more than that average increase. The other thing we've been trying to explain to people, and because we get the question, we can't avoid it really, what are my taxes going to be? We don't set the tax rate. We tell them the board of supervisors will do that. We basically provide the tax base, and you have to have a budget to get the third part, which is the rate. The Code of Virginia 58.13221 basically spells out how a change in assessed values as a result of a reassessment should reflect on the tax rate. And it says basically, when any annual assessment, biannual assessment, or general reassessment of real property by a county, city, or town would result in an increase of 1% or more in the total real property tax levied, such county, city, or town shall reduce its rate of levy for the forthcoming tax year so as to cause such a levy to produce no more than 101% of the previous year's real property tax levies, unless subsection B is complied with. And subsection B states the governing body of a county, city, or town may, after conducting a public hearing, which shall not be held at the same time as the annual budget hearing, increase the rate above the reduced rate required in subsection A, if any such increase is deemed necessary by the governing body. So what that's just saying is that you cannot collect any more than 1% from a reassessment without calling it essentially a tax increase, even if the rate's being lowered. It's not saying you can't adjust the rate or can't collect anymore. It's just you have to advertise it as a tax increase if it's more than 1%. I tried to look at prior years and specifically the years when there was a reassessment and what happened to the tax rate before and after. In 2011, 2012, the tax rate was 59.5 cents per hundred. There was a reassessment done by us for 2013. That resulted in about 12% decrease in the assessed values, and the tax rate that year was increased to 68 cents, which is to make up for the loss in the ratables. In 2015, the tax rate was 66 cents. 2016, it was 68. And in 2017, there was another reassessment. That resulted in about 1% decrease in the tax base, and the tax rate went up to 69.5 cents. And of course, this year, 2020, the tax rate went up to 73 cents. We got a lot of grief for that, even though that's really not our doing. We try to explain that to people, but, and again, we're trying to explain to people this may not be the tax rate next year, okay? So, I mean, it is very possible that your assessment could go up and your taxes could go down. In some years, it's possible your assessment could go down, your taxes could go up. So, it's not necessarily a linear relationship. So that's pretty much, one other thing that we have, we got a lot of people calling us. The notice, where it gives the 2021 values, the 2021 land building total, it says 2021 reassessed building improvement value. Now, Code of Virginia wants us to follow the terminology that's used in the land book, the assessment land book, because it relates to the assessment values and the land book values. There'll be a reassessment book that we file with the clerk's office when we're finished. And the wording in the Code of Virginia is land improvements total. So the word improvements doesn't mean that and a lot of people are interpreting that this means that we think that they renovated their property, or they improved their house, or they added on to it. It's not the case. It's just the language that we're required to use. It's the same, really, as saying land building totals. So that's one thing that we have to explain to, I would say, the majority of the people that are calling us. So just wanted to state that, just so people know. Any basic questions?
You may have said this and I may have missed it, but the total value went up by how much from the last assessment, percentage-wise?
About 10%.
10%, okay.
Yes. Yes, and residential property was the largest part of that. It went up about 13%. Agricultural property increased about 6%. And commercial property went up about 2%.
I've had several people contact and ask, the big concern is it seems that the homeowners in the county are the ones bearing the largest part of the burden on this. I know myself, I had some open land that there was no change in value at all, and then my home goes up 30%.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what people are concerned is that, you say it's going to, about a 10% across the board from last year.
Right.
Well, if we adjust the tax rate for that 10%, it still is going to affect the homeowners tremendously.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest concern that's out there. And, I mean, I don't know what would have made any difference to make the open land go up and take some of the burden off of the homeowners, but that's what the concern is.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of the open land is in the land use assessment, so even the market value that we're putting on it, and again, our values do not include land use assessment
That's right.
or tax relief or any of those other things. We're just looking at market value. So, and that's true, but again, our market data showed really the only place in the county where we raised open land values or agricultural land values was in the southwestern part of the county. And it's the only place that we really saw that the sales indicated that the property value should be higher. And that was only up to a certain point. If it was assessed at less than $3,500 an acre, that showed an increase, but above that, we didn't raise those because we just didn't have enough market data to prove that.
Of the 750 sales, how many of them was open land?
I would say probably about 10%. It's not large, and well, when you I'll have to rephrase that. It was land, but not all of it was agricultural land. Some of it was just building lots, also.
You had county, you employ county residents. At least one person works for y'all from the county, correct?
I don't know if they worked on this job. Yeah, but I mean, We have employees from all over the state, but yeah, we have a number of people that live in Southwest Virginia that work for us. One person lives in Independence. I live in Reiner. Our main office is in Roanoke. And we've had people say, well, you're not local. So, I mean, we're only using sales from Carroll County. We're not going to someplace else and looking at what their market value is. We're looking at sales in this county. So whether you hired us, and we work all over the state. We're doing Wythe County next year. We've done City of Galax several times. So we have worked in the area, so we do have a feel for the market.
Another question I had was, folks are saying they can't see or don't have the data to check other people's properties to see what their rates went up.
We have a list on the county website under the Commissioner Revenue tab.
Okay.
There are two lists of all the new values. One is an alphabetical order, so they can look it up by name, and the other is a map number order, so they can look it up by the map number. And we have a printed copy in the Commissioner Revenue's office out where the public can get to.
So that would be the place that they could
They
actually
can look up the values.
look up validate your all's work, basically is what they're asking.
Yeah, I mean, they can check values. Yeah, it's not going to be, if you go to the GIS site, those are not the new values. Those are the previous values. We give the people their previous value on the back of the notice, so they can see what it was assessed at, and they can see what it's assessed at now.
Any other questions of Mike? I thought that was very informative, and I appreciate you taking your time to come.
And we appreciate having the opportunity to work here. Thank you.
Is David here?
Yes.
Our next item is a discussion about the training center, and David Boatman is going to have a presentation. Welcome, David. Just come on up to the podium.
How are y'all doing? Y'all ready? All right. My name is David Boatman. I live in the Woodlawn community on Robinson Drive, close to, used to be the training center facility. It's been brought to my attention that the Life Center of Galax is looking at moving its facility, or a facility similar, into the old training center there in Woodlawn. Once I found this out, I did not know that the facility was for sale. I did not know that there had been a public hearing or anything involved with it. Once I found out that there has not been any advertisement with real estate firms or a public hearing, I started investigating it. I found out that my local supervisor was unaware of this move. A lot of the delegates and officials I spoke to here at the county building was unaware of this happening as well. I was then sent an email by my supervisor, Mr. Hill, from the previous administrator, that this project is looking to move forward. They are coming to Woodlawn. Having found that out, I checked with the Board of Real Estate in Richmond. They're looking at selling an $8 million plus valued property for just under $4 million to Acadia Health, which is the Life Center. At that point, I had started checking with the neighbors and employees of the current Life Center in Galax to find out more about the facility. That's when I found out there is a large amount of crime and problems associated in those communities directly surrounding that facility. I started speaking with my neighbors. We all agree that we want people to get help We all agree that rehabilitation is a good thing to get people off of drugs. And jobs are welcome into our county at any time. What we don't want as a community is the issues that are associated currently with the Life Center in Galax now becoming our issues as a community in Woodlawn or as Carroll County as a whole. Having spoke with the police chief in Galax, the numbers are 8 to 10 calls minimum per month to the facility, roughly 20 plus calls to the surrounding community within walking distance, businesses, persons, or property homeowners. These crimes involve a lot of trespassing, theft, break-ins, home invasion while families are home. That worries me because I have a wife, 6 children, that while I work every day so that I can help pay my county taxes, they're home alone. I want to make sure they're safe. I want to make sure my neighbors are safe. That if we leave a lawnmower in the yard, it's still there when we come home. These are not speculative numbers. They're actual numbers coming from a police chief in Galax from a facility that's like what we're looking at getting. It's my understanding that this deal has not went through, that it is in the final stages and waiting to be signed in Richmond. It originally began as Mr. Carrico put together a bill stating that the county would have, I believe it was with Brasida, would have an opportunity to sell it, try to do something with it. They were unable to in the time frame allotted, that it was originally designed for children, juvenile facility of some sort. That has been changed by, I believe, Delegate O'Quinn in 2020 to allow sale of the facility to anyone for any reason, as long as it was healthcare related, for up to 5 years. It worries me that an $8 million facility is being sold for less than $4 million. It concerns me of what's coming. I'm asking the board to please get involved in on this, and I've spoke with the new administrator as well, voicing our concerns. There could be an ordinance. There could be zoning for these type facilities or facilities similar, not specifically dedicated to this one, but any type facility that may have a problem of crime associated with it, that they fence it, that they make sure that the facility is secure so that citizens are protected. Having spoke with the sheriff and explained to me what a TBO, to be under advisement, or when they hold someone against their will, he's explained to me that if he has to dedicate deputies 2 at a time, 8 to 10 times a month, which this will be a larger facility than the one in Galax, so those numbers should increase. That means if you live in Laurel Fork, Piper's Gap, anywhere else in the county, and you need a police officer, they may not be able to respond to you because they are so much dedicated to this facility and the problems it's bringing. That is a pretty good concern for me, that the facility also incur the brunt of those costs if it is excessive to that facility, and not it be a burden on the citizens of Carroll County as a whole. It will not just be Woodlawn paying these officers' salaries, it'll be the county as a whole. We ask that there be a public hearing on the use of this property, and that the citizens and Carroll County be involved in if a facility or a corporation of this size is looking to move here. If it is going to be an issue, the sheriff had explained that he would very much like to possibly rent one of the old security buildings at the training center each year to have his administrative offices there and be in a better location to respond to the county than out of the basement in the town of Hillsville. It would be a quicker response rate. That may be a cure for some of the issues we're afraid of that's coming. The 125 beds is what Acadia Health is looking to do immediately. There's 98 acres. They're looking to expand. The people coming aren't exactly what you would think of as someone just trying to get help. It's been explained to me by employees at Acadia Health and their representative that the folks that are coming there will be ordered there as a drug sentence prison reduction, that they have to complete a facility treatment in order to reduce their prison sentence. And about 60% of those people will be moved from that facility, from prison to that facility to complete their program. Then they must go back to prison in another locality to complete a sentence somewhere else. So of course, those people may not want to voluntarily stay there with no fence and no security. If they have the problems that Galax is having with drug dealers bringing in drugs, and Carroll County Sheriff's Office has told me that they intercept quite a few cars coming to the Galax facility bringing in drugs, that's not something I feel is positive for our county. I would like to see this facility used for something that would be a positive thing for the community, something that brought jobs, but not the negative aspects of what's happening in Galax to us. If our crime rate goes up, everyone in the county pays. If the crime rate goes up, it makes Carroll County less attractive to business to come to Carroll County because it's a problem. Or folks looking to move here with their families, which is what we want. We want good people coming here. When they look up Wikipedia and the crime rate is now going up because of one facility, it's going to be negative on us. So I ask that if there's anything the board can do, look at zoning, look at an ordinance, look at even a transient tax, like a hotel, because they're going to be housing people there on short time, 30 to 45 days, like a hotel, in and out. We as a community would like to know that we have some type of safety at our own homes. And not just for our personal property, but for our families, for our grandmothers, our mothers and sisters that will be home alone during the day while we're at work. And I want to know that someone's not wandering into the yard, breaking into the house, and causing the trouble that's associated with the one in Galax if they're moving to Woodlawn. Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you, David. You brought up some very interesting points, and we'll take it under advisement and see what we can do.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Our next item concerns Paradise Road abandonment. Ronald, are you going to talk to that first, or is someone else here?
Good evening. You have before you a request from the 4 landowners along a discontinued portion of Paradise Lane. The Planning Commission has reviewed this, and the recommendation coming from them is, since this actually does connect 2 ends that are state maintained, is that this remain as a discontinued road in case there is a future need to be able to get through that area. One of the landowners, the one who has been the key contact, would like to speak with you all about this issue.
Could I ask a couple of questions? Is this still VDOT right away?
When it becomes discontinued, it is turned over to the county, and it's no longer considered a VDOT issue. It's up to the Board of Supervisors as to what happens with the road.
So it's been discontinued but not abandoned?
Right. And the request is to have it abandoned.
And so it is a county decision at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Newman,
Yes, sir.
if I could ask, where are we in the process? Have they
Where it's,
submitted all the documents?
yes, we're at the point where the board decides whether they are going to accept this request or not?
For a public hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, if they approve and accept the request, then we get into the notices of the public hearing, the posting along the road, notifying adjacent landowners, that type of thing. I think it's item B
Very good.
on page 2.
You're correct. Thanks, I just wanted to make sure that we'd at least gotten, we're on the same page as far as where we were procedurally, so
Yes.
that helps. Thank you.
Ronald, looking at the map that you provided, the 2 black lines, is that where the interstate maintenance is currently? There's 2 black lines drawn on this map. One of them is at the Carroll Floyd Land LLC line, where it's like.
If that's not exactly where the interstate maintenance is, it's close.
Okay.
But in between those 2 black lines is where the request to be abandoned is.
Is there a reason that there's one landowner that's outlined in blue and the others are in yellow?
No. If you go on our GIS and you select a parcel, it will be in one color, and the ones adjacent to it will be in another color. So that
I was just curious if that meant anything different than the rest of them.
has no meaning whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. I guess we're ready for whoever's
Okay.
here.
All right.
Welcome and come on up to the podium. You may take your mask off if you choose to. You don't have to.
Good evening. My name is Craig Cordero, and I want to thank you for giving us the ability to address the board with our concern about a non-maintained road in Galex that connects the northern section of Whitney Lane with the southern maintained section of Paradise Lane. It's a road that's probably less than half a mile. It's never been a maintained road because basically to call it a road, it's a little bit of a gap here because it's more like a carriage path. Okay? And as a result, it's extremely dangerous. And the reason I say that is because obviously all of the navigation apps show this as a way to get from Whitney Lane to Poplar Knob. Okay? And many a car has come up as far as the beginning of the road to realize that what they see ahead doesn't look good, and and they back down. The more venturesome people travel through. Much to their surprise, they find about halfway through, you now have to traverse a creek to continue on this road. That causes panic to set in, and literally, since there's no place to turn around, a call for a tow company. The pickup trucks, though, obviously can traverse this road quite easily because they have the height. And the young people seem to get quite a lot of fun out of basically bouncing through the ruts in the road, okay, leaving parts behind them, much to the squeal of their girlfriends, okay. This is fine, except when it's during the weekend, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, okay. My wife has been accosted verbally for having the audacity to turn on a porch light while this is happening. Because our place, we're in Whitney Lane, Whitney Lane's a straightaway, so people come down, turn around on this intersection of Whitney Lane and Rainbow, and they fly up that section of Whitney Lane as fast as they can to obviously augment the bumps and the front that they're having. The problem that we have here is, the dangerous part is that on this one side of this Paradise Lane is basically an abrupt cliff. Okay? And obviously, if somebody bounces high enough and loses control of their vehicle, they're going to flip over this. Someone's going to get seriously hurt. Okay? Add to this, besides the dangerous part, the road has become basically a dumping ground. My day now involves picking up beer cans that have been strewn down the hill onto my property and my neighbor's property. Add to this deer carcass, tires, and now recently furniture. Okay, so my neighbors basically asked us to speak on their behalf. They've signed a petition that you have in front of you to get this roadway publicly abandoned. And to summarize it, the road serves no viable purpose. There are no driveways off of the road. The alternative routes are available within a very short distance. Cranberry to the east, Tower Road to the west. It takes over 10 minutes to drive the half mile, so it is certainly not a shortcut. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. Anybody have any questions?
I'm sorry?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Ronald, I got one other question.
Yes, sir.
Looking, will this landlock anyone if it's abandoned? Will it landlock Carroll Floyd Land Company?
No, it would start at where Carroll.
So they would
Floyd
still
Land
have
Company is-
access off of Paradise Lane?
Yeah.
Where does the Whites access? Do they have a road that goes onto their property?
Their property actually
Is it on
fronts
the
on,
road?
fronts on Rainbow
Borders
and on, is it Whitney?
Whitney, yeah.
Has there been any thought of gating it? Has there been any thought of gating either end of this?
It's
area?
it's illegal to gate a
Yeah.
discontinued road because you're cutting off a public right-of-way.
What is the distance that we're talking about between the two maintained areas?
I honestly didn't measure it.
Half mile,
Craig, how much is it?
approximately half mile.
Okay, thank you.
So, are you here representing the planning commission?
Yes,
And they were in favor of not abandoning it, is that
right.
correct? Do you want to give us your reasoning for that?
In case it's needed for future access, because it is connecting two endpoints that are both state maintained.
Got a question. If we abandon it, what's to stop these people from going through there anyway?
Then there's no longer a right-of-way through there, and the landowners can gate it.
Got a question for Craig. Would you be acceptable to, if the county kept an easement for utilities?
I would speak to the other people, but yes, that would not affect our concerns, an easement for utilities. And obviously, there would be access to this road because of the gates that would be at
If you
either
locked
end.
it, yeah, but
Is there water on Paradise at all? Water or sewer on Paradise?
The improved section, yes. From Poplar Knob
Okay.
down to, I'm going to say, maybe a mile, or maybe a mile and a half to the unimproved section, but yes.
Can there not be some signage put there at the end of state maintenance? Not to travel it
It
on
exists
each
now.
end?
That exists now.
People don't pay attention to any signs, whether it's an advisory sign or one that actually has a law that they can write a ticket for. So I feel we'd be wasting time and effort if we tried to put signage up.
How much?
If you accept this request, then the next step is we would go to the public hearing phase, in which it would be advertised in the newspaper, the adjacent landowners would be notified, the road there has to be posted at 3 different places on the road for 30 days before the public hearing.
If I'm going up Piper's Gap, I'd personally like to see it before we did anything. Where is it located? Paradise Lane off Piper's Gap? Where did we find that one?
Right, if you go on past Little Country Store, Rainbow Drive makes sort of a circle off of 97 and comes back to 97. If you're going west on 97, if you go to the second Rainbow entrance and
That's
go
actually
up
Whit-
it.
That's actually Whitney.
It's actually
Is it Whitney? Okay, Whitney comes out there, Rainbow comes into Whitney. Turn on Whitney and go, and then it becomes the part that they're talking about, and then up the top of the hill becomes Paradise.
I'd like to see it before I did any action on it either way.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it from both ends.
You could make a motion to table it until next meeting if you choose to.
Can I ask something? So when the police come out there, they won't even go up that road, the sheriff's department, they won't even touch that road. So they'll stop right on Whitney, and they won't go any further.
I just want to add that because we're talking about gates at either end, and we're not going to change the property, if there ever was a cause to need to reopen that, obviously all would involve would be removing the gates.
What is your pleasure, gentlemen?
If we have a public hearing is our next step, correct?
That's correct.
So that's,
So you make a motion to accept the application and give the proper notices and hold a public hearing. You could have a motion to reject the application, in which case they could not reapply for I believe it's a year. Or you could vote to table the matter until the next meeting and give it some more consideration before you decide one way or the other.
We had a public hearing, it would be in January.
Yes.
That'd give us time to go by and look at it. I'll make a motion.
Could we get it,
proceed
you
with
said
public
30,
hearing.
I don't,
We gotta have a 30-day time period.
February.
for it to
Okay,
be
so
noticed.
February,
So most likely you're looking at February before we could get everything done and
that'd give us plenty of time to look at it. I'll make a motion, we go move forward with public hearing.
I'll second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? The motion is to accept the application and go forth with the public hearing. Seeing none, I'll start the the vote with Mr. Moore, sorry.
Yes.
Mr. McCraw, Robbie?
yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Yes.
we will proceed.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Ronald. Thank you all.
I can't visualize it. I'd like to see it.
Our next item is the sheriff's resolution. I'm kind of hoping you've all had a chance to read that, but so I don't have to read it all.
What's that?
The sheriff's resolution.
Yeah.
The sheriff has requested approval.
Is this a good thing for us, Mr. Durbin?
It's certainly something that's within your sound discretion, your good judgment. There's nothing in here that I see that gives me concerns or that you're committing yourself to a legal course or anything like that. You're expressing a point of view here. So I don't see any legal hazard for the board if you would like to approve this.
I definitely believe we need to support our law enforcement in every way that we can, so.
Is this something that probably has come from the Sheriff's Association or other sheriffs in the state?
I'm sorry?
Is this something that may have come from the Sheriff's Association or the other sheriffs in the state? Are they supporting this?
I have not seen a formal resolution at this point, but it's certainly something that's being discussed with, amongst law enforcement, sheriffs, and just generally in the local government community. So it's definitely something that, it's a concern that's shared, I think, in a lot of places in the Commonwealth.
Okay, thank you.
I do know that Augusta County passed it recently. I was checking some research on it. They had passed the same ordinance, resolution particular to them. So I think it is probably by the Sheriff's Association.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? The motion is to accept the resolution in opposition to any legislative effort to repeal or revise the judicial doctrine of qualified immunity for law enforcement officials. Hearing no discussion, I'm assuming we're ready to vote. I'll start with Mr. Robbie McCraw.
Yes.
Mr. Philip McCraw.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Yes. The motion passes unanimously. We have a litter grant appropriation of $9,077. Is that for this year or next year?
This is grant we just now received. It will, they'll deposit it into our account within the next month. So it's for this term cycle.
Because I think frequently back in the spring, different groups pick up trash and get reimbursed for it, or
Well,
that's what it's for. Okay.
Yes.
So we need to approve and appropriate $9,077 for the litter grant for funds received from the Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ.
Make the motion, we approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
I second.
Okay. Any discussion? Start with Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Philip McCraw.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Mr. Robbie McCraw.
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes. Third quarter appropriation, and when I try to open that, I get something weird, so. I couldn't see that.
This is just our quarterly appropriation, correct?
yeah, it should open up in Excel. If you open up the agenda and look at the third quarter appropriation, it'll kick you to the document, and it has all the appropriations in order to do this third quarter.
Page down right there, Tom. Hit third quarter right there.
I tried that too.
Now hit view. View.
Oh. I'm getting a lesson here. Okay, thank you. I don't have to tell you, I'm not always gadget literate. Does anybody have any questions about any of those items that maybe Mike could answer?
Have we looked at the revenue on some of these areas that have sufficient coming in to pay for those specific things?
I think some of the, you know, I had the opportunity to look at some of our revenues. There's a few that are down at this time. I think a report was sent out that appears that our fines and court fees are down, our mills tax is down some, and the lodging is down at this time. But I think at this time, we're fine with approving these appropriations so that we can go ahead through the third quarter.
And that runs to April.
Would anyone like to make a motion that we approve and appropriate third quarter numbers?
I make a motion, we appropriate this third quarter funding.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm assuming you're ready to vote on the third quarter appropriation. I'll start with Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. McCraw.
Yes.
Bobby.
Yes.
Mr. Phillip.
Yes.
McCraw. Yes, thank you. I'm sorry for the confusion here.
Oh, you're fine, you're fine.
Hey. Could I ask the question, please?
Yes.
Would it be all right with all of them? It'd be fine with me if you call me Philip and just leave McCraw off.
Okay. I can do
Save
that.
the confusion.
Well, like I said, when I was down there, I could look at you, but it's hard. Their next item is a school appropriation, and they have requested $98,400 to the Carroll County Public Schools for a security grant received by the Virginia Department of Education.
Make a motion, we approve the appropriation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll start with Philip.
Yes.
Mr. McCraw.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yeah.
Yes. Motion passes. Okay, the next item is the PSA grant appropriation, and we're requested to approve and appropriate $9,276.76 to the PSA for a grant received from the DHCD, and request the authorization be provided for the county administrator to sign all supporting documents.
I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll start the voting with Mr. McCraw.
Yes.
Philip.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Motion passes. We need to set an organizational meeting for the next year to elect officers. And Mike has requested that we set January the 11th, 2021 at 4 p.m. as an organizational meeting. And also request that the regular monthly meeting for January begin immediately following the organizational meeting. If that's okay with everybody, could I have a motion to that effect?
I so move that we set the organizational meeting as requested.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. I'll start with Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Philip.
Yes.
Mr. McCraw.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. There are a lot of motions tonight, aren't there? Is there any other new business that I'm not aware of? Hearing none, we'll move to old business, and the first one is the VDOT pipeline project, and everybody was requested to make a list, or think of projects that we might add to a list for them to do that. And Crystal has just handed out a list of ones that have been mentioned. Does anybody want to discuss any particular ones?
Are some of these the rural rustic?
I'm sorry?
Are some of these under the rural rustic?
You probably have to ask whoever put these on the list. I don't
Yes,
know.
they are. We didn't, VDOT never came by and got anything for a 6-year plan to be added to, so I added them to this. In fact, the first 4 that I added, that roads that's been requested to be paved.
Got some that I don't have on here with Route 620 and Airport Road. That little tractor trailers can't make that turn because it's so high they drag when they come from the airport to 620. And then 620 at Rescue Road. That's a sharp turn there.
Not Rescue Road, is it? Yeah, it is.
No, it's not Rescue
It's
Road.
Oak Grove.
Oak Grove, yes.
Is where Colson Church and Oak Grove.
Yes, that real sharp curve where you can't see to turn left to go to the school.
I have 2 I want to add to. The intersection of 221 and 100. Right there. And the intersection of 221 and Hunters Ridge Road.
What was it, Les Road?
The second one was 221 and Hunters Ridge Road. Hunters Ridge.
I'm assuming, will VDOT, normally in April, we have an opportunity to discuss the 6-year road plan. Well, that's still,
She didn't last year.
I know she didn't last year.
I don't expect it this year either.
Okay, so we need to add those ones that we want under rural rustic. Might separate them by rural rustic maybe.
There's a spreadsheet that they've sent that we fill out on these, and I think the purpose is they're looking for other funding sources
Okay.
to get some additional projects in.
Then there's, I got 2 or 3 that requested the road. Can't think of the name of the road.
I can continue to add them. I'll just go ahead
All right,
and
let's
put
do
these
that.
in.
Yeah, that works.
Will these be sent to Lisa, I guess?
There's a spreadsheet that they have sent me, so I fill that out and it goes to it. Can't remember the gentleman's name.
And we can add to it as we need to. Okay. If anybody else thinks of any other places, let Bristol know.
Looks clear to you.
Our next item in old business is to reallocate some approximate amounts of CARES Act funds as listed below in the memo from Mike. $65,301 Hazardous Bay County to small business grants, $9,566 hazardous pay to the county, $1,432 to PSA, $176 rent relief, for a total of $11,174 to the county COVID supplies. If you have any questions, you'll have to ask Mike about those. Have we expended almost everything?
We have everything except the $11,174 to count. There's a few odds and ends that we're waiting on, but the main changes is what we did is we, The appropriations that were made to the Sheriff Department, we went ahead and continued with the appropriations were made, so the entire amount was being spent. Also, we looked at the part-time and full-time employees and adjusted them. One of the big things we did was there was some money left over in hazard pay for the county employees. Moved that to provide small business grants, and that's part of the money that was transferred over. And we're actually down the wire, so if there's any questions, once we finish this up, we can do a reporting and hopefully finish this up by the next few weeks. The only item that on here that is might change is county COVID supplies, and I'm trying to work on some hot spots in order to provide broadband service to communities in order for them to be able to access it for school, for work, and those type of things. So hopefully if that comes to fruition, we'll transfer that money appropriate to the broadband, to the hotspots.
What are your thoughts, gentlemen?
Do you need a motion, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Need to approve those changes.
I make a motion that we appropriate the CARES Act as presented, the remaining CARES Act funds as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion or questions? I'll start the voting with Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. McCraw,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Philip,
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Yes. The next item are some committee appointments. Some of those are from last month, and there are a couple of new ones. EDA, Mount Rogers, CSB, and the CPMT. We do have some applicants for those. What is your pleasure, gentlemen?
I'll say table them for another month.
Okay, there's a motion to table until next month. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Before you, can we go ahead and do at least the CPMT one? That has been a request from that board.
That's Trey Coachell.
Yes.
That's the current member, and Jerry Sturgill is the applicant, right?
They needed a replacement.
Is the first one eligible for reappointment or
I
not?
think they have
Okay.
Do you know what his,
So Jerry Sturgill is requested to be on the CPMT.
what is his, is it a family, is it a family member thing, or what is
See
it?
if
Do
her
you know?
email says. Private provider seat.
Okay. Make a motion, we approve that one. That's specific to people who provide services for social services.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, I'll start with Philip,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. McCraw.
Yes.
Yes. Now, there was a motion, I assume, to table the rest of them. Is that true?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Was there a second?
I seconded
Okay.
that.
In discussion on the tabling of the other two committee appointments. Hearing none, I'll start with Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. McCraw.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Philip.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Yes. Is there any other old business that I'm not aware of? Well, we're down to board member comments.
Mr.
I'm gonna
Chairman.
start- I'm sorry. Did somebody say something?
Mr. Chairman, could I make a motion that we let the county administrator or the county attorney one address to DEQ the situation we got there at the Hardy Board?
Well, I was going to give you a chance to talk, so that'll be part of your supervisor's
Okay.
comments, so go right ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we let county administrator or the county attorney one check with DEQ about the Hardy Board issue there on York Road, York Thicket Road in Lambsburg. And I'd like to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight.
Is there a second to his motion?
I'll second his motion.
Any more discussion? This has been an ongoing situation for a good while, hasn't it, Philip?
I don't think.
Yes.
And been trying to get it resolved for some time. Any other discussion? I'll start with you, Mr. Moore, to vote.
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Philip?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Yes. Did you have anything else, Philip? You done? Okay. Mr. Webb?
Just briefly, I know this is December, the end of the year. I want to thank all of our staff and all of our employees for doing a good job this year through the COVID. It's been tough. I understand that. I want to wish everyone I guess I'm going to do this politically correct, happy holidays, but I say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year if we don't see you before then. Just want everybody out there to be aware of the COVID situation that's going on now in Carroll County, Grayson County, City Galax, Southwest Virginia. We're in a hot spot. So don't let your guard down and stay safe. I know a lot of people are contracting it now, and just want everybody out there to stay safe and enjoy the holidays, and hopefully 2021 will be a better year. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, all the people that come and citizens that come and spoke their mind about issues that we had throughout the county. It's good to have people involved even during these trying times, and thank Ronald and the Planning Commission for all the hard work they do to give us the opportunity to make these decisions the best we can. Thank Mr. Watson for his time he's put in since he's been here. I appreciate that. And county lawyer, and he worked hard for us, and we didn't get to tell him a lot when his daughter was sick, and we're thankful for that, and glad she's doing much better.
Thank you so much.
And just look forward to spending time with family, and continue to look out for the ones that's less fortunate during this holiday time. There's a lot of food banks and all we can help support if you feel it in your heart, and I guess that'll be all. Thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. McCraw?
I'd like to just reiterate what most everyone has said, that keep mindful of all that's going on around us in our communities at this time of year. And I'd like to thank staff for all that they've done, and it's been a tough year for everyone, and I don't think it's quite over yet, even though we're getting close to the end of the year, but I think it's going to have some tough times into the next year. I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Hope everyone enjoys spending time with their families.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Yeah, I want to wish Crystal a happy birthday.
Thank you.
I would sing to you, but you don't want to hear me sing.
I think Joe said he'd sing.
I'll sing solo. Solo, you can't hear me.
I wish everybody, employees, a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and I appreciate all the work they've done. It has been tough this year under all the circumstances we've had to do. And I want everybody if at all possible, to get out there and, when it comes time to get your vaccine, let's get rid of this mess. If you can do that. The other thing, I'd like, Mr. Durbin, if you would look into legal methods that we might could address the sale of Southwest Virginia Training Center. Just let's what possible remedies we might have, if any. It's a state entity. It's typically nothing. Usually we can't do anything, but if you would look into that, I appreciate it.
Would you like that to be an agenda item?
Yes.
We address you at the next meeting?
Yep, that would work.
Thank you. I was also going to request that to see exactly where that process is and what our options might be. I'm not sure how far along it's gone, but it's certainly worth our time and attention to see where it is and what we can do about it. This has been an extraordinarily challenging year in many, many respects, and unfortunately, you look out into where the audience normally would be sitting and you see Ronald, and so that's been our challenge all year, is that we can't meet face-to-face with a lot of our citizens several of the months out of the year, and that's been a problem for us. We always like when citizens come and voice their opinions, either positive or negative, but we want to hear what their problems are. And I know it's not always a thing that people want to hear, but you ought to be wearing these masks when you're outside and with people, because we need to stop this COVID thing, and that's one way of doing it, is to social distance and cover your face. I hope everybody stays healthy, and I appreciate all what the staff has done. And under these trying times that we've had, departments have shut down because of COVID and had to isolate and work half with the number of people they usually would. So we appreciate all that, and keep all the wheels rolling. And I'd also like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we'll see you on the 11th. And Mike, you get the last word.
Well, the only thing I was gonna ask you if
Yep, you can have Christmas Day off.
I already got that. The December 28th, do we want to cancel that meeting for this year?
Yes, I think we do.
Other than that, I just want to say I appreciate everything you do, and I'll echo, be careful, be safe, and enjoy your holiday.
Thank you. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. That's a lot of stuff.
I say it's gonna be as warm as it was last night.